Eric Van Holt's back again with another e-commerce conversations. I hope all is well on the other side of the internet. On the other side of the internet for me, Mehtab. What's up, man?
Hey, Eric, how are you? It's good to finally be on. I've been a long-time listener.
Long-time listener, calling in. First-time guest. Excited to have you on board. I think I've been connected with you on X for a long time, and I always...
And e-commerce fuel, I think, right?
Yeah, Ecom Fuel. You're in there? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have the same profile photo? Because if it's a different photo, you might as well be a different person.
Right? It's a different photo, yeah. I think so.
I am like that face blind. I'm like,
yeah, I get it. Yeah.
I can see somebody's profile photo and see them in real life. And I'm like, I have no idea who you are. And you're like, dude, we've had so many conversations on X. But yeah, your takes are always great. But for our listeners who don't know who the heck you are, why don't you give me a quick 30-second rundown?
Sure. I'm Mehtab. I'm the co-founder of Karta Ventures. We specialize in investing in consumer brands that are in special situations. So they're distressed. Maybe there's like an EPA issue or a tax issue or something like that. Maybe a co-founder dispute. That's kind of our bread and butter. If something's distressed, or it can be profitable and it's just kind of a weird situation. We can move really, really fast. We can write a check, et cetera. So we've done tons of weird stuff. Everything from, we currently own like a succulent company where we bought the farm and we literally ship succulents direct to consumer, all the way to more traditional, boring kind of apparel stuff. Well, it's not boring, but it's boring compared to shipping plants, to succulents, to some artificial florals, et cetera. So we're kind of all over the place.
I wanna dig into the deal of distressed businesses. How distressed is too distressed? Like, what won't you touch? What is the redheaded stepchild of e-com to you?
Yeah, I think when we were younger, we had more appetite to do deals where we were dealing with like a balance sheet issue and a P&L issue. Now I just want one or the other. I'm just too old for it. I'm done. I'm not in my 20s anymore. I don't have that much energy. So it has to be one or the other. And I think the big thing for us is sizing. So we just need to make sure if it's a company where it needs to shrink in size, it needs to shrink to something where it's still appealing to us to run, or it's still exciting for us. And we need to be able to deploy enough capital in a way that makes sense. Like, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah. So how much is shrinking? Like if I'm a distressed listener right now and I'm like, oh my God, I'm done. The tariffs are killing me. I just want to retire on a beach, get a little bit of money for this business and move on with my life. Like, you tend, or at least online, you kind of claim like 8-figure businesses is what you're shopping for.
Yeah, usually like we want to be able to shrink to like 15, 20 million. If that'd be kind of like the bottom of the range. If we're buying it outright, we can go smaller if we're not. But a good example is like we're looking at a retailer and they were doing around 70. They'd peaked at 110. And I think they'll do like 70 this year. But I honestly think it's maybe a $30 to $40 million business if it's profitable. So something like that would be ideal. And again, that's retail, so your margins are much thinner. I would think of that almost as like a $15, $20 million D2C business, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So let's kind of walk into that. Like how can a company be doing 70 million and not be profitable, but profitable at 30 to 40? Because, the common assumption is there's always economies of scale.
Right.
What are these reverse economies of scales that are happening?
Yes. I think the big one's incremental CAC. So typically, as you scale, you move out of that core audience, and it can be different depending on what your TAM is, right? Like, if actually good examples, one of my first businesses was a guitar pedal company that I co-founded, and I mean, there's not that many guys that wanted niche guitar pedals for progressive metal. It was like just a very niche product. So if you wanted, you could crank ad spend, but you wouldn't actually generate that much more revenue. And you see that with every business, just depending on what the inherent TAM is, right? So for this specific company we're looking at, they actually had 2 channels. They had a retail side of the business where they own their own stores. They're selling a different product line in store. And that side's actually pretty attractive. It's quite profitable. It's been around for a while, all over the East Coast. I think they have like 6 to 10 locations or something. And then the D2C business was essentially losing money. And that's what they were really feeling. And it was profitable when it was smaller. But I think they'd have to shrink it to the point where the D2C side of the business was only like 20 million or something.
Okay. So when you're putting out your bat signal to find these distressed companies, like what does that process normally look like? Is it a lot of cold emails? Is it just continuing posting on X and then getting a lot of leads that way? Or how are you able to find the right deals?
back in the day when we started very, very, very long time ago in 2018 now, I feel really old. It was just a ton of cold emails. So I think we probably cold emailed over 2,000 companies. We just pulled everything in from, do you know builtwith.com?
Yeah.
Yeah, we used like builtwith, and then I think we used Alexa and then something else. We basically pulled data from a few different sources, figured out if like what someone's backend was. And if we knew, hey, if you're using this app, you're probably not doing like 100K a year or something. You're probably doing like at least a couple million. And from there, we just started cold emailing, seeing what we could do. And now over time, it's been more and more word of mouth. There's just not many people focused on distressed or turnaround. So, and again, we'll invest in profitable companies. We're actually doing, I think the last 2 or 3 companies we invested in, they're profitable. And there's a lot of stuff to be done. So for example, we're standing up a new manufacturing facility and they wanted help with that. And that's something we can help with. So if there's a lot of big projects like that, that excites us too. But yeah, I'd say most of it's kind of inbound now, if that makes sense.
How do you value a distressed company at?
Yeah, I like to look at it ground up, like from the parts almost. So you can think of it as if you had a car, you got in a car accident, what's left over, what are the actual parts worth? And then if you were like a really skilled mechanic, what could you do with the parts potentially? And I don't like to give that part too much value because you never really know what can happen. But we like to look at it kind of from the ground up and build a thesis from the ground up that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So so when you look at it, you've got your assets, your inventory, your database of customers, you've got your IP, your brand, and then, the knowledge of the team and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then I guess when you what is that? You said you can move quickly, but what does that diligence look like to assure that, you're not going to be caught holding the bag? Because I would imagine there's a lot of, you kind of mentioned it, like tax liabilities, or I would imagine there's a lot of debt. How are you able to structure these deals so quickly and not blow your foot off in the process?
Yeah, good question. I think a lot of it is just the way we structured it initially. So we might only acquire the right to purchase equity initially if we don't have time to diligence all of that. And that way we can get in and we can write a fairly decent sized check quite quickly, or at least we can get our paws in and just help start cutting costs. And that'll kind of create breathing room so that we have time to run diligence, if that makes sense. So maybe we jump in and we can cut 6 to 7 figures in costs very, very quickly in like a, let's say 7 to 10 day period. And then acquire like warrants or options or something like that gives us that upside potential without the same liability. And then later, like that, during that period, we can also run diligence. So then we know if something's truly sideways. And at the same time, the management team has a chance to work with us and see if they like us or not.
How can you guys, in a week's worth of time, make those kind of cuts that they aren't doing? Or do they just not have the balls to make those hard calls?
I think a lot of it's context, right? Like if you have experience looking at, the way I think of it is, I think the easiest analogy is someone like that's been working at a marketing agency. They have a better idea of a company's success, what's being driven by PMF versus good marketing, right? And if someone's only,
sorry, I don't know that acronym.
Oh, like product market fit.
Oh, so, product market fit. Okay,
sometimes, I'm sure you've seen this where someone just has a crazy good product, perfect fit for what they're selling. They scale to crazy volume, even though things aren't necessarily being done right. Like I have a close friend, I think they run at like 30% net and they're doing like 30 or 40 million. Has no clue what he's doing on the e-commerce side. It's really funny. He'll tell you the same thing. He thinks it's hilarious. But it's just like a great product, great patents, really predictable. No one can rip it off. And like they nailed the PMF side of it, right? So because of that, they like a marketer who's worked in an agency, they have a lot of context behind like, hey, this is actually good marketing. This is lazy marketing. This is like, oh, the person's not dropping enough creative into the ad account, or their AdWords account's really sloppy. And because we've worked across so many different companies now, we have good context for, like if someone says, yeah, I have a supply chain team, but we only have like 4 parts in our raw materials that we actually need to source. We've never even visited factories or something. I'd be like, all right, well, what's the supply chain guy doing all day? Or we'll see something where a founder's really strong at one part of the business, so maybe marketing or product or something. And then they have less of an idea with what's going on with like the supply chain side or the finance side. And maybe that team's really fat, right? Like a CFO at a company doing 20 mil a year, they shouldn't need too much in the way of support staff, depending on the complexity if they're manufacturing or something. So we can come in and we can say, your CFO's not really doing much. You can probably let him go and you won't feel it. Or like maybe it's something where they're not supported enough, right? So I think that context helps us a lot with making decisions very, very quickly. Even just doing things like logging in. Let's say someone's not experienced in the marketing side, just logging in, taking a look at the AdWords account really quickly. Like I'm totally comfortable diving in. I'm pretty good at that. And seeing what they're actually bidding on, where spend's going, how much wasted spend there is. And if it doesn't look like it's super tight, you just kind of wonder like, hey, well, why is the agency involved being paid? Or like whoever's running this just isn't doing a good job. So stuff like that. And then the, do you know Traction or EOS? Yeah, I think the GWC tool from there is super amazing, especially if a company hasn't been using it. It just lets you like stack rank your team basically super fast in a good and I think fair way.
The GWT, I'm not familiar with that.
GWC, like the get it, want it capacity to do it.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. And then, so I guess for our listeners, it's just a tool that lets you, it sounds really dumb, but it's beautiful because it cascades so well through the organization. Like I can have a warehouse guy rank, like even a warehouse lead could rank his direct subordinates. He could use the same tool as an executive, and it just works so beautifully through the organization. Super simple. I can teach it to anyone in like 5-10 minutes, and they can cascade that down. We can figure out kind of where the fat is.
So what's the goal with this? Is it to flip it? You make it profitable, you make it lean, and then you find a new buyer for it who wants to just maintain it? Or do you want to keep it and roll the profits out?
For us, it just depends on if we bought it outright or if it's a minority equity investment where we don't control the company, which we're fine with too. We've done way more of those than control. So for example, we invested in that succulent company a long time ago, 2018. We helped cut a ton of debt. We renegotiated everything out with the lenders. Then we helped turn the company around. And at the same time, we bought a farm to bolt on. So we're actually farming these plants. We're growing them. We're shipping them out of Riverside in California, if you know where that is. Kind of just like a desert, literally. It's pretty cool. And we're comfortable holding that position. So we've been holding that position since 2018. We're not going to sell unless the founder wants to sell. And that was our agreement. It was like, hey, our goal is to get our cash out in that specific deal with, I don't know, I think within a year or two. We think we can do it this way. If you're cool with that, we're fine with whatever happens afterwards. And that's kind of where we're at. Other times we work with founders where they want to clean the company up, supercharge margins, then flip it in like 6 to 12 months. And we're fine with that too. So I think the big thing is just making sure you're aligned. Everyone has the same goal, and they're like, we're not flip-flopping as far as what the goal is. Like it needs to be something pretty clear. We need a clear roadmap. We need to make sure we're working towards the same thing. And then there's really rarely anything that can go wrong.
How many companies are you currently working with?
There's 3 we spend a lot of time with, and then there's probably another 8 where we're pretty passive, or we have a very small equity stake in, or just complete like non-control passive angel style investments where we're not like totally not involved. And they were just raising, and I said, sure, I'll write a check.
Yeah. What's your hit rate for ending up in the black?
I'll tell you a funny story. So we've only lost money. We broke even on one deal. That one was kind of bad. It wasn't horrible. The founder just basically changed his mind and gave our money back, but we wasted time doing diligence and stuff. So I count that as losing money. The other one we lost money on in diligence. We lost kind of low 6 figures between us on doing diligence. And that one was a weighted blanket company. So this was in 2018. Yeah, it's 2018. So it was pretty new back then, pretty trendy. How familiar are you with like the whole story arc of weighted blankets?
Oh, well, so you know Josh Durham?
Yes.
He was in the weighted blankets space. He was just on my podcast. And then, of course, cool. Casey, who's been making his rounds with the whole tariff tax thing. Okay. I don't know if you saw those posts or not. He was in.
I saw that. Yeah, that's crazy.
I think he was in the weighted blanket, and then he's pivoted to other products. And it was just like there's a small sliver of time where people were making a killing, and then China came in and just like obliterated the entire market.
Yeah, so this is totally a blessing in disguise because we're fairly inexperienced. So we come in, we're about to buy this company, like traditional leveraged buyout. So financing the deal kind of with 40% debt, 60%, like a combination of kind of the seller rolling some of their equity, the seller providing some financing, and then using kind of 20-30% equity from us, like just a check. And the deal's supposed to close like, I want to say December or something like that. And they're very December heavy in terms of revenue because there's a lot of gifting. Maybe it's November, December, something like that. And how familiar are you with WooCommerce?
WooCommerce? I mean, I've never used it, but I'm aware of the platform.
Oh, actually, it wasn't WooCommerce. What's the other one? There's the third one that everyone used to use. Sorry?
BigCommerce and Magento.
Yeah. It was BigCommerce. So basically, the website was super SEO heavy, and for some reason, they decided to change their product titles to say out of stock or in stock, completely tanked all the rankings. And because of that, all their EBITDA was like, they generated like 70% of their profit in Q4, completely missed Q4, bombed out. The company went from being really healthy and profitable to completely distressed. And we were like, hey, I think we have to change the terms of the deal or something because you guys are now like going to miss payroll. And that was not good. So they kind of like freaked out, tried suing us, et cetera. Total mess. It didn't go anywhere, obviously. Yeah, I don't know why. It didn't really go anywhere. And we had paid probably $200,000, $300,000 in diligence fees. So just complete mess. And that's the most money we've lost. After that, we haven't ever lost money.
What are diligence fees? Is that, just working with auditors and...
Yeah, it's like we paid for a QV. We started on the work stream with the main lender that we were working with. There was like a work fee deal. And then there's just like our own time flying out there, et cetera, flying our team out there for diligence, and then just random stuff like that. It all adds up.
How much of your deals are leveraged with bank loans and outside funding?
So most of the time we'll just write if it's distressed, we'll just write the equity check ourselves and we'll just jump in and get involved. And then once the company is cleaned up, we'll kind of look to raise either debt or equity, depending on what the goals are for the company. But I'd say very small amount use debt initially.
I wanna hear some good like e-com drama for
sure.
Some of the stuff I'm sure have crossed your table.
Sure. So do you just want funny stuff, like funny stories?
Tell me everything, man. I just want to hear that part of the reason I want to do this is because like we all see our own businesses and we know the warts because we're in it all the time. And then we'll look outside and we'll see all these beautiful businesses. But I want to hear more about like the other warts that.
Cool. So we bought this company and my co-founder, it actually was pretty close to my co-founder, like 45 minutes away. So he'd been there for a day or two. And then I moved to Salt Lake to help run it. It was based in Utah. And then I get down there and the first day I get there, a PayPal investigator shows up, which I didn't even know was a thing because they hadn't shipped orders from Black Friday and it was March. This was in 2019. So it was a while ago, like 6 years ago. And first of all, the guy's like, yeah, I'm an investigator. I'm like, an investigator from where? Like the police? And he goes, no, I'm just with PayPal. And I'm like, you know what? Honestly, that makes sense. Go ahead. You can look. He just wanted to make sure they were actually working on orders and stuff. And it worked out, but it was crazy. I didn't even know that could happen. And then the same week, the newspaper, the local paper, because it's a small town, they were going to do a write-up on the company for not fulfilling orders. So he calls me and I get this, or I think he called the company number. Someone forwarded the call to me. I pick it up and he's like, yeah, I'm with like, I forget the name of the paper. It's like a small paper there. And I was like, what is that? And he's like, it's a newspaper. I'm like, oh no, you got to hold off. We just acquired this company like 4 days ago and they were about to miss payroll. So you're going to put it in the dirt if you do this, don't do it. And then he didn't do it. Really nice guy. I sent him a little thank you note like a year or two later after it was turned around and fixed. But that was crazy. That company had all sorts of wild drama. Like we got there, they also had a guy, he would always show up in a kilt and he would work in the wood shop and he would have like tons of knives on him. And he would show up at 4 a.m. when no one else was there, just by himself, which is like a really big no-no for a wood shop, right? And also you should be wearing something pretty protective because it's kind of dangerous. No one was using any safety gear in the wood shop. And they had like, it's pretty robust. They had like 10 people in the wood shop, probably alone. Just all sorts of crazy stuff like that. Like no one following the safety rules, et cetera. And they all, this is funny too.
Like did they just get too many orders they couldn't handle and they were a manufacturer and they didn't know how to scale manufacturing? Is that how they ended up in that position? Or
I think the lady running it was definitely kind of in over her head. And she had been doing things like selling gift cards to fund like working capital needs, all sorts of crazy stuff. So
okay.
Yeah, it was totally wild. And then the other funny one was they did drug testing and someone got caught doing meth and like in the drug test. And that's not something like you just smoke meth on the weekend, right? I mean, it's like I would assume it's like an everyday thing. You can't be a weekend warrior with meth, right?
Okay.
It's not like it's weed or something. Yeah. So we had to fire her. We fired a bunch of other people. There was like a guy who, there were a bunch of people who weren't paying.
She was your most productive employee too, which is such a shame.
Probably, yeah.
Working until.
Just all sorts of crazy stuff like that. So
yeah.
I could keep going, but it just gets more and more entertaining.
Yeah.
And actually, after we got there, someone tried to kill another employee in a softball game. And she called me. She's like, she calls me and she's like, yeah, I heard this like manager who got fired is going to try and kill me at the softball game by throwing a ball at my head. I'm like, call the police. I'm just like your boss. Like, I can't help you. And I'll help. I'm happy to provide a testimony or whatever you need, or even drive you there if you want. But I mean, I can't. What do you want me to do?
Yeah. Don't
so
go to the softball game. Like
crazy stuff like that. Another one, a manager. Customers kept texting us about the manager there having an OnlyFans account. I'd assume it was like a jealous ex or something. Totally crazy. Honestly, I didn't care that she had that or whatever. It didn't really bug me. But it was just hilarious. We kept getting messages about it. So
you're doing, I mean, so the 8-figure business. So I run a small business. We keep the team. Right now we have like 10 team members. So
cool.
You're getting into that 8-figure space. I would imagine you're probably like 20 employees, 30 employees per company, or like where are they?
It totally depends. It's like if they're manufacturing in-house, it's totally reasonable for them to have like 100 plus if they're manufacturing in-house. And that can be spread out, right? Like a lot of people abroad, some people in the US, et cetera. But even in the US, you could be doing like 30, 40 million and still have 100 plus employees in a production facility.
So it gotta seem like the headaches of that size business where you're just like barely big enough to have all of the like regulation requirements, but still kind of small where you don't have all the, processes built out in HR. Like, isn't that just a constant headache? Like, isn't that no fun? I mean, how can that be fun for you? I guess is the question.
I don't mind it because it's kind of cool. Like, if you're doing 70 million and you make a small tweak that saves 1% of revenue, it's so much cash, right? Versus like 7 million. So you get a lot of leverage over the business. You can do a lot of fun projects. Like one I had a lot of fun with recently was we got to work with a professor, and for some reason he decided to specialize in like cardboard boxes and how thick they are. So we got to optimize how thick the cardboard boxes are so they could withstand shipping out of a more humid environment. And we managed to initially they were too thin with our new manufacturer, so they're getting crushed because of the humidity where we were, it weakened them. And then he helped us get to the optimal thickness, which was actually still slightly thinner than we originally had. And I just had fun with that. Like, it's kind of a dumb project. You can't really justify if you're only going to save like, I don't know, $7,000 a year. But if you're saving like 70 or like 300, it makes a lot of sense. So stuff like that's really fun for me.
Okay. Yeah. I guess if you nerd out on the optimization, I can see where the appeal is. But
even if you crack like a new channel, right? It could be kind of cool. You just have more money sitting around for testing, right? Like if I want to throw like $100,000 to testing Pinterest or something, I can do that. But it's way harder when you're doing like 3 or 4 million because that might break the company.
Yeah. Yeah. You're up in Canada, right?
Mm-hmm.
Toronto?
Yeah. No, I'm in Vancouver. And then I used to live I lived in the US for a while on and off. Like I've lived in like Deerfield, and then I've lived in, which is near Chicago. And then I've lived in Salt Lake for a while. And actually my wife's from Utah, and then we moved to Mexico because we moved the production facility for one of our companies. So I was like, I'll move there. I don't have a kid yet. So that was kind of wild. And then moved back to Vancouver once that was all up and running.
What is your take on, kind of the international business side of things? You've got some good takes that I've seen online, basically like just shipping it over the border and delivering it from there. What are some best practice for our Canadian listeners out there and how to optimize to Americans, especially in this challenging time?
Yeah, I guess we're kind of weird because all of our stuff is actually in the US, and a lot of our brands can't ship outside of the US really. Like our plants, we can't ship them outside of the US because of regulations. It's a cool moat because like you're not going to be competing against the guys in China, right? It's kind of cool that way. But I'm actually not a great person to ask about Canada and the US because I don't have anything in Canada. It's all in the US. Yeah, typically I'd say as far as if you are like, did you mean if you're a US brand selling into Canada?
I would say, I don't know. I mean, I would be interested in that too, because that's probably going to be more of our listeners. It costs us like $20 to ship something to Canada. I don't know why it's so expensive.
Who are you using for shipping?
What, UPS or FedEx, USPS?
Check DHL. Are your packages pretty small?
Some of them are. Some of them aren't.
Yeah, DHL is pretty cheap for international.
Okay,
I do that for sure. And then generally, if you're selling into a foreign country, especially with Canada, UPS specifically just screws everyone on something called a brokerage fee. USPS, like the Postal Service or DHL or FedEx, they charge like $3 to do customs brokering, and UPS will literally slap you with like a $50 bill on a $100 item. It's crazy. So Canadians hate buying stuff that's shipped by UPS. So if you are shipping there, I'd stick to like literally anyone else except for UPS because they're more or less satanic.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, like even when we were looking at it, like even it would be like $14 or $15 or something like that. Yeah. So I don't know. It's not a big enough market for me to deal with. And then everyone's always complaining how expensive it is to ship up there. So rightfully so. I mean, but
when I had actually one of my original companies was a men's hair product company called Blumaan, like BLUMAAN.
Yeah, no, Joe.
Really?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's funny.
I mean, I'm in this space. Like we're YouTubers, so.
Oh yeah, it's true. I don't know. I spaced that, but that was one of the first companies.
Who was it? Ben. Ben was like the. Okay, is Ben your partner?
No, he was. I haven't worked with him in a really long time, but he's still a really good friend of mine. He was just at my wedding like last year. I talked to him like once a week or whatever. But we grew up together, and we actually. So the way that company was seated, this is really funny. Is Ben was in? Have you seen the movie Double Jeopardy?
No.
So it was a really big movie with Ashley Judd in the '90s, and he was the kid. He was a kid in that movie, and he was in some Huggies ads. So when we graduated high school, he had like 40 grand or something like that, and we were like, hey, let's YOLO this money into starting a company. So that was one of the companies. Yeah.
So, I mean, what happened with that? You guys sold, Joe's gone in partnership with, it seems like Claymation, who is at Hans de Foco on the salon side.
I haven't been involved since 2017, maybe.
Okay.
So a very long time. I was just like kind of there for 2-3 years. Then I sold my equity. I think Ben exited like a year or two later. So neither of us have been super active since like 2017. But that one was like the total addressable market seemed kind of small, or maybe we weren't cut out for it. But I'm still good friends with all those guys. So
yeah,
it's fun.
Yeah, it's a hard market. I'll tell you that. It's a lot.
Can I tell you a funny story, Eric? You're gonna laugh so hard.
Yeah.
So when I started on the investing side with Karta, one of the first deals we looked at, actually this deal worked out crazy well, was a adult health and wellness company, which is a euphemism for something else I'm sure most of the listeners can figure out. So
does it have a discrete shipping?
Yeah, it does. So basically no one else would touch the deal because it was too like, they just hated the space, and then we did it because we were new to the space, and I don't know, whatever. It's not like they're selling drugs. So we get involved, and my office, I just decided to use the Blumaan office because I'm like, we have a pretty nice office space conference room. So the co-founder flies in from that company, and the founder flies in from the company, and he brings a bunch of products to show us, some videos. And we have in the conference room, we have like a giant screen, right? And he puts on just like basically videos of the product, and it's like a nipple being flicked or something really funny. And it's showing off how realistic the doll is. And then someone from Blumaan on the marketing team walks in and looks at me, and she's just like really disappointed looking, disgusted, and walks out. I'm like, I swear I have an explanation for this. It was really funny.
Here in Austin, Texas, Fleshlight is headquartered here. And,
oh, really?
Yeah. And they have I don't know what their like proper like business name is that people put on like LinkedIn.
Right.
It's clearly not Fleshlight, but
no.
I think there's some kind of tiptoeing you need to do when you're in the health and wellness space.
It was super funny. And that was just cold outreach. He just messaged me on LinkedIn, and then we ended up selling our equity stake in a secondary round to a venture capital firm, and we ended up making like 10-12x on that deal. And that was like kind of our first home run type thing within 12 to 16 months or something like that. So it was awesome. Super fun, obviously. Crazy deal. Like he thought we could, we set up warehousing in Utah because originally it was a drop shipper. We converted it into more of a traditional retailer and then eventually launched their own in-house brand. But the founder was convinced we could like resell the returns or do something with the returns. So we were just hoarding returns in the warehouse in a specific corner. So there's all these like health and wellness products in the corner of the warehouse, and they're just stacked, and it was disgusting. It was the most hilarious thing ever.
I don't know what was going on in his mind to think that he could resell that. That is
maybe on eBay or something, you know. Yeah, perverts always have money.
Well, yeah, there's always a fetish for something, right? Mm-hmm. You know.
So that was an entertaining deal.
Yeah, I bet. So, is this when you do a deal, how much? Or I'm more curious, like, what does your day look like? How much of it is in like the research of the deal, and how much of it is coming into the business and helping optimize it to find, new channels for growth or new ways to optimize to cut costs?
Yeah, good question. So last 2 deals we did, even just using the last one as an example, profitable jewelry company that's been around for a long time, I think 10 plus years. Basically, the founder wanted to come in, help supercharge margins and grow the company with new channels and new product. They're men focused right now, but obviously men's jewelry is very, very tiny compared to women's. So we're helping them launch a women's line, helping them launch their own manufacturing operations overseas, and then just making a bunch of overall kind of fixes on the efficiency side, if that makes sense. Scale the team, implement EOS more fully, just things like that.
Is that you really running that, or is that like you're hiring an ops, or you're just coaching up the founder?
That team's really good, and I absolutely love the guys working there. So I have a lot of fun working with them. Like honestly, I do so much. Like I used to talk to the guy anyways, almost every week, like just for shits and giggles because I like him so much. So in that case, it's more of a coaching type scenario. Like right after this, I have 2-3 hours of calls with them, and then I have another 3-hour call with them the next day, just to go through kind of where we're at, some of the plans to react to tariffs, blah blah blah. But we're fairly hands on. I think the way we like to really think about it is if there's a project that's recurring in nature, or a task that's recurring in nature, we like to teach them how to tackle that task. And if it's something that's going to be one-off, like you're running the math on, is it worth doing in-house fulfillment versus outsourcing that to a 3PL? We'll help them run the analysis just because we've done it so many times. Or if it's looking at booting up their own manufacturing, we'll run the analysis because we've done it so many times. It's not something they're going to have to do more than once, right? Right. So we'll get very hands-on with that project. Or if it's something like implementing lean manufacturing principles at a facility, my co-founder will fly out there and do that with them for a few days or whatever it takes. Or if it's something like negotiating with a lender, if a company's upside down, I'll usually just take that on and we have presentation stuff built out that we can reapply.
Yeah. So what are some how do you negotiate with a lender? What are some techniques to use?
Yeah, good question. I think the first thing is like, where does the lender sit in your stack? What security do they have over your business, et cetera? If it's a smaller company, they might have a personal guarantee. If they don't have a personal guarantee, are they secured? Are they unsecured? If they're secured, it basically means they have they can move faster as far as enforcing the debt that they're owed. The lender absolutely does not want to own your business. I think most lenders realize, some don't. I'd say they're getting better about this, but some are really stupid and they'll try things like a secured lender might try to just immediately put a lien on your payment processing account and pull money out. But that's kind of stupid because they'll get like 3 hits of processing and then they will get nothing after and the company will be out of business. So I think the big thing is showing them, look, you can do this stupid thing and go totally berserk and you'll get like 5% recovery, 10% recovery, or you can be a good boy, you can listen to us and you can do what we say and we'll make sure you're recovered in full, or some percentage that's really preferable. And that's what we tend to push them into.
And that's, I mean, from your perspective, that makes sense because you're coming in as a third party and you're like, hey, we're no longer running it like it used to be run. We're fixing it. But let's say you don't have, they haven't sold to you. They're not distressed. And that's not an option for them. Like, what are some other tactics? Is just like really clearly outlining what that
I think
runway
you need to
looks
show
like?
them. Yeah, I think you need to show them the runway and you just show them the pain that you're willing to take. So you need to show them like, hey, look, I'm going to cut my own salary by X and I'm going to make these changes within the business. I'm going to change our margin profiles. We will be able to pay you back on this on the specific payment schedule, et cetera. And this is clearly a better choice than this, right? Like typically they want to be paid back within 12 to 18 months. Again, depends on the lender a lot, just totally depends. But you want really to show them, if you do this and you go full scorched earth, it's not going to work out well for anyone. I'm going to lose my company. You're going to get like 5-10% recovery. But this other way, even if you just waited 90 days, you'll have that 10% recovery. So you'll be there already. Just don't be an idiot. And at the same time, they will rack up legal costs doing all that, right? So you can paint the picture of, are you going to spend $100,000 to recover, I don't know, let's say it's a smaller business, like 1 to 2 million. It's actually a lot, especially if you can only recover like 200,000 of that, right? So spend 100,000, recover 200, you net 100,000 and you're in a bad position as the lender. You're better off being patient and helping like enforce or push the company's plan to kind of expand margins and ensure payback happens.
If you're a founder and you're trying to get capital from banks, debt financing, what are some of the things that they should do to make sure they're setting themselves up in a good position when looking for
Good question. So I think this really depends on the specific company and the size of the company, as well as your risk appetite. I think what everyone should really keep in mind is we're all in consumer. Consumer is famously jumpy in terms of revenue and sentiment, right? Like you saw during COVID, things got really good, then they got kind of bad. Now they're kind of mediocre or maybe even leading into bad. So because of that, you want to make sure you're not running with debt that's not flexible. It can put you in a really, really bad position if revenue is declining because of a change in the macroeconomic environment, and then you're stuck with these debt payments. It's just a really bad place to be. It's rough. So the first thing I think is important to understand is to model out the impact of the payments that you'll be making and what you're truly liable for, and ensure that you really understand, like, hey, am I signing a personal guarantee? Are they secured? What can they do? What will happen? You can even look them up on Pacer and see what legal actions that lender has taken before to see how good or how bad they are. Because a lot of lenders are great. Like, some are famously good, some are famously bad, some change quite often. A lot of the e-commerce lenders have been really bouncy. So they've gone from being good because they raised a bunch of venture capital money and just basically torched it, to bad or even going out of business. Like, I think it was it Ampla that went out of business recently?
No idea.
Yeah, one of them went out of business, and they called everyone's credit line before that. So it put a lot of people in a really tough position. If you had a couple million with them, suddenly you did not have a couple million. So really, really tough. Brex did the same thing. Brex famously was in e-commerce in 2020, 2021. Huge thread on ECF about this, but they pulled out of the space and they just tried cutting everyone's limit. And they said, we're going to cut your limit and you're going to pay us, or you can sign this agreement where there's a personal guarantee or something stupid. Luckily, their initial agreements were pretty weak. So if you told them to go and eat dirt and you'll pay them back on your own accord, you're actually in a better spot, which sounds really weird. But you have to be careful with the lender that you're dealing with. You have to know, like, hey, is the lender actually, where are they getting their money from? Are they someone you can really rely on? Or if times get tough for the lender and they can't raise more venture capital to burn it, are you going to feel the impact of that? So we're willing to, I'm very happy to pay a little bit more to go with a lender who's safer, like a traditional bank type lender or something like that.
And then I thought that was pretty interesting about using Pacer, which is like basically searching for lawsuits that have happened. I never even considered something like that. And then, I feel like, entrepreneurs is just like, I need money. I go anywhere, not really understanding the consequences of it. Can you explain to someone what a personal guarantee means and how that could affect them by signing one?
Yeah, so this actually varies a lot by the state you're in, and I'm not overly familiar with the personal level because I'm Canadian. So, but obviously we've looked at it a bunch. We've talked through it with people before. But if you sign a personal guarantee, it essentially means that your personal assets are on the hook if things don't go well. So that means like you're using your house as collateral, right? I think a personal guarantee is fine, but you should be getting compensated for the personal guarantee. So what I've seen sometimes when we look at a company is there'll be third-party investors, but the founder will have issued a personal guarantee to get debt. And then it's not fair. Like, I think the founders should be compensated if they're going to be giving out a personal guarantee, because it's like they're lending to the company essentially, right? Otherwise, the company would have to pay a few percentage points more for that debt. And we've even seen this at really large companies doing like 40+ million in revenue, where the founder just like had a PG and wasn't being comped for it. And at the same time, if you do have a personal guarantee, you should be able to get a really good rate. You should get like an SBA backed loan or something similar. Don't use one of these sketchy lenders that can't remember any of their names, but some of them, they want a personal guarantee and they want to charge you like 20% or 30%, which is crazy to me. If there is no if there is a personal guarantee, you should be paying way less than that, like prime plus a couple points or something through an SBA backed program.
Sweet. Where can people follow you, sell you their distressed business, reach out to you?
I think Twitter is the best. I'm just at Mehtab Karta, MEHTAB, and then KARTA, or LinkedIn's fine too. You can just reach out there.
Nah, don't go on LinkedIn. No, LinkedIn. That's terrible. LinkedIn's That's terrible advice.
No LinkedIn. I've been banned. Eric's gonna give me a backhand next time he sees me for suggesting LinkedIn. So don't go to LinkedIn. Horrible place. You can also go to our website, just kartaventures.com, and send us an email. We're super responsive. I think.
And Karta with a K, right?
Yep, just KARTA ventures.com. And we have a little email box. Shoot us an email. We'll probably reply in like 4 to 10 hours. Even on the weekends, I have nothing to do. So
nice. We gotta get you some kids or something.
I have a kid. She's newborn.
Get you some more.
Yeah, I am. That's on the plan too, apparently. So on the docket.
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Thanks for all the knowledge bombs. This has been another e-commerce conversations. Cheers.
Cool.
Keep on growing.